When I think about technology having the ability to manipulate us, I liken it to other people having the ability to manipulate us. This is going to be another off-the-cuff response video to a documentary, and the documentary we're talking about today is The Social Dilemma. I feel like I'm a little bit late on the train with this one, and that's because I didn't originally intend on ever making a response video. But weeks after this documentary first came out on Netflix, people are still talking about it. So clearly it's kind of a big deal. A little bit of background about myself. Prior to making YouTube videos, I actually came from the world of tech. I got my career started working exclusively at tech startups in software, and then I had a startup of my own, which coincidentally was in data mining. And then after that, I ran a marketing agency, and we continued to implement that lean startup philosophy into our accounts, and we would sometimes work with tech accounts. So I'm at all the conferences. None of any of what the documentary presented was news to me. And I think that's a huge reason why I didn't feel so compelled to finish the documentary all the way through the first time. And I actually just finished the documentary last night for the purpose of this response video. The Social Dilemma is a documentary that features a bunch of expert interviews, people who were once heavily involved in big tech, people who currently are, sort of like the decision makers and people who exist on the periphery who have a really deep understanding of the implications of social networking on society. The everyday person might think that social media is harmless, it's conspicuous, it's a way for us to engage with one another on a more hyper mobile kind of way. But really what the documentary reveals is that it has far-reaching implications. It's already impacted the world in unintended ways, and if left unchecked, it will lead to the spiraling of society. Some themes that this movie touches on are: one, surveillance capitalism and data mining, what happens when you give away your data without really knowing what it means. Number two, the addictive quality of social media. These are products that are essentially designed to be as addictive as possible because it's our attention that these companies trade on. Number three, the use of social media in politics and how it really has led to polarization, because if the algorithm picks up on the fact that you lean one way or another, it's going to feed you information that confirms your biases. And so what happens as a result of that is everyone just exists in their own echo chamber. And so, for example, if you're wondering why people are so polarized in the upcoming 2020 US election, a huge driving factor is where people are getting their information from. They're getting it from Facebook, from Instagram, from Twitter. The fourth theme that this movie touches on is its effect on mental health of everyday individuals, and specifically of adolescents. This is a demographic in which we're seeing rising rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide. The movie explicitly even draws or seems to suggest a link between social media and those things. The fifth theme that it touches on is the role in spreading conspiracy theories like Pizzagate and some of the real world consequences of really extremist brainwashing. What the movie is essentially saying is that social media is dangerous. Unchecked social media use is ruining humanity, like quite literally. It's causing us to spiral. The message is really alarming. And I understand why people thought it was alarming, especially people who don't come from the world of tech like I do. Maybe I didn't find it quite as alarming because I've had a long time to process this information. But with all of that said, I still have a response, and I still have critiques to share with you. The first critique is essentially that the stylistic nature in which this movie was presented, it was really made in a way to get us to become afraid. I really took issue with some of the ways that some of the interviewees, especially the tech insiders, how they were framing the problem at hand. I thought there was an element of hubris in what they were saying. They were essentially saying, we've created a monster that has the capacity to brainwash and manipulate all of humanity and to cause individuals to become disconnected from their inner selves. And my response to that was, I don't think that's entirely it. I know you probably on a subconscious level want to feel like you've created something big and powerful, but I don't know if it's really all as big and powerful as the movie seems to suggest. And by it, I mean social media. When I think about technology having the ability to manipulate us, I liken it to other people having the ability to manipulate us. And yes, absolutely, we should be having conversations about the manipulators so that everybody can be aware of their ability to manipulate. But I don't think that is the entire story. I think there's another part of the story that warrants a conversation, and that is who among us is more prone towards becoming manipulated? Who among us is more prone towards becoming manipulated by other people and by technology or any extrinsic means? If we're being honest, the people who are more prone to manipulation are those who have vulnerabilities. And that's why if we're talking about whether or not social media, something as addictive as social media, should be made available to children and adolescents unsupervised, I am leaning on the side of no, I don't think social media should be made available to adolescents unsupervised. Something as addictive as that, because adolescents tend to be more vulnerable. But if we're talking about adults, because you and me, I'm assuming we're all adults here, we have the freedom of choice. But it doesn't necessarily mean that means we're not vulnerable. In fact, many adults carry with them vulnerabilities. And if they're not conscious of those vulnerabilities, that's when manipulators can come in and influence us into taking actions that we otherwise wouldn't take. And I think that's what we're trying to prevent here. But I don't think, and the answer is to simply put your phone down. Maybe it is, but it has to come from a desire to put your phone down. Not something born of willpower, but from something else. And what I'm trying to get at is this. Regardless of if you're addicted to chocolate cake or video games or alcohol, all addictions stem from a place of wanting to fill a void. That's where they stem from. The people who are addicted to social media are trying to fill a void. Maybe what they're lacking is affirmation, love for themselves, and they think that they can get it from other people. And I say this not from a condescending place, because I used to be one such person. I used to be addicted to social media, and now I don't think that it has power over me. Now my relationship with social media is one in which I feel like I use it as a tool. I make the choice, not the other way around. And I think we can all get to that place with regards to our relationship with social media. If we can approach it from a place of general presence and awareness. I wish the movie would have ended on a more optimistic note. Not for us all to be afraid and to believe that society is spiraling downward. If it were up to me, I would have ended the movie in this way. Yes, there are new forces trying to grab at our attention, trying to manipulate us, trying to influence us, trying to get us hooked, trying to disconnect us from our inner selves. But what if this presents an opportunity for us to turn our attention towards spiritual development? And I say this without the connotations of what you might believe spirituality means. I don't mean religion. What I really mean is, what if this is all an opportunity for us to cultivate a greater awareness of ourselves, of the present moment, and to be comfortable in the present moment. I think that if we could do that, then we wouldn't be so vulnerable to everything else trying to grab at us. We wouldn't be so vulnerable to ads that try to make us feel bad, or to shallow values that society is telling us that we ought to adopt. We would all just be fulfilled and satiated internally. And then once we can feel that all we need is in the present moment, I feel like that in turn would make us better neighbors. We wouldn't see our neighbors as our foe just because they had different opinions. I think that it would just make us all round better citizens. And it all starts with here. I have no idea how that all is going to sound when I play it back, but I'm hoping that it made sense to some of you guys at least. Essentially, if I had been the director of the movie, it would have been less fear-mongering and more optimism. But hey, maybe that doesn't sell. But I think there are enough of us to whom that message would resonate. And that's all, that in itself is good enough for me, I think.